You never think it could happen to you. Walking into your own home and realizing that everything you thought was safe, familiar, and predictable is a lie. That Tuesday morning started like any other, the kind of rare day off where I imagined finally catching up on life instead of being swallowed by endless work. I had asked someone to clean the house while my husband, Julian, was on the phone with a client, and I thought the day would be quiet. But then my phone rang. Miss Blake. The voice was trembling, barely a whisper. Is someone else in the house? I felt my coffee cup slip from my hands, the warm liquid spilling across the counter. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I asked, though part of me already feared the answer. Something's not right, she said, her voice cracking. There's crying coming from upstairs. I'm scared. I'm leaving now. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, numb. My hands were shaking. Tears? Crying? In my own home? My house? My sanctuary? I called Julian immediately. His voice, usually steady, sounded alarmed. Brenda? What did you see? Are you okay? Julian, she whispered. Upstairs. I don't know. I think someone's hiding. The words ended in a shudder. I didn't think, I just bolted for the door. My heart thudded so hard it echoed in my ears as I ran to my car. Every scenario raced through my mind. A break-in, a home invasion. But none of it made sense. Everything in the house should have been normal. I knew this. I had been there every day. Alone, I thought. By the time I reached Montfort Street, my hands were clammy, my mind a tangle of fear and disbelief. The house looked exactly as it always did. The windows, the porch, the tidy garden. Nothing seemed wrong. But the silence, it was too complete. Too deliberate. I dialed 911, my voice shaking. Yes, I think someone might be in my house. Please hurry. Within minutes, patrol cars pulled up. Officers Martinez and Williams approached, professional and calm, but I could feel the tension in my chest like a vice. Please stay outside, Martinez said. We'll check the house. I watched from the sidewalk, unable to tear my eyes from my front door. The minutes stretched endlessly as they swept the living room, kitchen, and even Julian's office. Upstairs, every closet and bedroom was searched. Brenda arrived shortly after, pale and trembling. It wasn't TV, or a recording, she said, clutching my arm. Real. I heard it again. A woman's voice. My stomach sank. Officer Martinez nodded toward the attic hatch. We'll check there last. But be honest, it looks undisturbed. Small hatch, rusty padlock. Probably just storage. I stared at it, uneasy. Something about the dust around the latch was off. The padlock had cleaner spots, fingerprints. My gut twisted. This isn't right. This can't be right. Martinez smiled gently. Old houses make strange noises. Pipes. Floorboards. Probably nothing. We've been thorough. But as the officers left, the feeling of unease stayed. Brenda's terror, the cry she'd heard. My house shouldn't have secrets. And yet something was wrong. Julian tried to reassure me when he got home. Honey, it's probably just the house settling, he said, rubbing my shoulders as we sat on the couch. His words were meant to comfort, but my instincts screamed otherwise. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, listening to the house breathe around me, hearing creaks and groans that seemed amplified in the darkness. Something was up there in the attic. Something alive. By morning, Julian was gone again, called away by work. I couldn't focus. My thoughts kept drifting back to that padlock, the mysterious crying, and the way Brenda had sounded, so terrified, so certain. I knew I had to see for myself. I went to the living room where Julian sometimes worked, opening drawers, scanning the house for anything unusual. That's when I noticed it. A portfolio tucked behind some of Rosalind's early artwork. Style I knew, too familiar. These sketches, they weren't Julian's. They weren't Rosalind's. They were Cordelia's. My sister. My missing sister. My heart stopped. 10 years. 10 years she'd been gone, and now, her art hidden in plain sight. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages, seeing the delicate lines, the raw emotion. The way she captured light, shadows, and the smallest detail. It was unmistakable. Tears blurred my vision. How could this be? Why had no one said anything? And more importantly, where was she? The attic. I knew deep in my bones that the answers were there. The padlock. The noise. The art. All of it. I needed to know. And that night, for the first time in years, I would climb those stairs alone. That night, the house was silent in a way that made my skin crawl. Julian was gone, the city lights casting faint shadows through the windows. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the old house felt amplified, like it was breathing around me. I retrieved the stepladder from the garage, my hands trembling so badly I had to grip it with both hands to keep it steady. The attic hatch stared at me, small and innocuous, yet somehow menacing. My pulse raced as I climbed. Halfway up, I clutched the flashlight between my teeth and fumbled for the pliers I'd stashed in my pocket. The padlock was old, rusted, or so I thought. I twisted it gently. It resisted at first, then gave way with a soft click. My breath caught. It shouldn't be this easy. I lifted the hatch slowly and a wave of air hit me, stale, human, with a hint of paint and something else I couldn't place. My stomach turned. This was no forgotten storage space. Someone had been living here. Crouching through the opening, I shined the flashlight across the attic. My heart stopped. The space was bigger than I expected, converted into a tiny studio. Shelves of art supplies leaned against the slanted walls. Canvases stacked in neat corners. A thin mattress lay in one corner, covered by a threadbare blanket. And in the far corner, hunched over a table under a small lamp, was a figure. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. The figure froze and slowly the head lifted. My chest tightened. The face that stared back at me, it was my sister Cordelia. The one who had vanished 10 years ago. Gaunt, fragile, hair unkempt, clothes hanging from her thin frame. But her eyes, those eyes were hers. Still bright, still sharp, still unmistakably Cordelia. "Julian," she whispered, voice trembling. "Is it really you?" I wanted to scream, to run to her, but my legs felt like lead. I stumbled forward, dropping to my knees and wrapped my arms around her frail frame. She felt so light, so fragile, it was almost like holding a ghost. "I thought I'd never see you again," she murmured against my shoulder. Tears streamed down both of our faces. 10 years of fear, uncertainty, grief. It all poured out in that dimly lit attic. I pulled back slightly to look at her properly. The lamp revealed every detail of what captivity had done. Her cheekbones were sharp beneath paper-thin skin. Her wrists were delicate, almost skeletal. Clothes hung like drapes on her frame. Yet her eyes, they held life, intelligence, and that spark I remembered. How have you been here all this time?" I managed, voice breaking. Cordelia looked down at her hands, fingers stained with charcoal and paint. 10 years ago, I was working late at my studio downtown. A client, Marcus Brennan, he came by. He'd been drinking. Tried to touch me. I fought back, Julian. I didn't know what else to do. I hit him with a paperweight. He fell. There was blood. So much blood. But I'd killed him. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. He found me. Rosalind came by that night, she continued, her voice trembling. She helped me. Said I had to hide. That if the truth came out, it would destroy everything. My life, our family. She said I had to stay hidden. And so I did. I stared at her, disbelief and horror warring in my mind. Rosalind, Julian's wife? He orchestrated this? Cordelia's eyes filled with fresh tears. I thought I'd never see anyone again. I thought the world had forgotten me. I drew to survive. And then Rosalind took my work and made it her own. My art became her success. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Every sketch I'd admired, every illustration I'd praised in Rosalind's books, it had all been Cordelia's. Her work. Her talent stolen while she suffered alone above my very head. I don't understand, I whispered, voice barely audible. How could she? Why? I don't know, Cordelia admitted, tears spilling freely. But she convinced me it was safer this way. That no one could know. I tried to escape once, but it was too dangerous. And I stayed and I survived, but only barely. I hugged her again, this time tighter, my own tears falling uncontrollably. She was here, alive, in my attic. All these years. Hidden. Suffering. Yet alive. A thought struck me like lightning. The crying, the sounds Brenda heard, the attic light Mrs. Patterson mentioned. It all makes sense now. I pulled back slightly to look at her. Cordelia, we have to call the police. We have to end this. We have to stop her. She nodded, fragile but resolute. Yes, yes, let's do it. It's time. I can't live like this anymore. I reached for my phone, hands shaking violently. My mind raced through the hours ahead. Police investigations uncovering the truth, exposing Rosalind. It was terrifying. But this time I wasn't powerless. I had my sister back. As I dialed 911, the attic felt less like a prison and more like a starting point. The truth was finally here. 10 years of darkness, fear, and secrets were about to collide with justice. And I knew deep down nothing would ever be the same again. The moment I heard Cordelia's voice, shaky but alive, I knew the days of living in fear were over. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone. I took a deep breath and dialed 911, trying to calm my voice as I explained everything. This is Julian Blake's wife and my sister. My sister has been hiding in our attic for 10 years, I said, words spilling out in a rush. She's been trapped. Please, you have to come, now. The dispatcher was calm but urgent. Ma'am, officers are on their way. Stay where you are and do not engage with anyone else in the house until they arrive. I ended the call and turned to Cordelia. She was clutching herself, shaking, but there was determination in her eyes. It's time, she whispered. No more hiding. No more lies. We waited in tense silence, listening to the house creak around us. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper of wind a reminder of the years she'd spent here unseen. I felt a mixture of relief and fury, my heart pounding with a dangerous mix of emotions. 10 years. 10 long years of manipulation, fear, and stolen life. When the police arrived, they moved quickly and efficiently. Officers swarmed the house, paramedics in tow. Detective Sarah Morrison took the lead, her gaze sharp as she surveyed the attic space, taking in the makeshift living quarters, the art supplies, and the thin mattress where Cordelia had survived a decade of isolation. Ma'am, tell me everything, Detective Morrison said gently, kneeling beside Cordelia. The weight of years of suffering hung heavy in the air as Cordelia recounted the story. Marcus Brennan, the attack, Rosalind's interference, and the art that had been stolen and repurposed as Rosalind's own. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. The woman I had shared my life with, my home, my bed, my trust, was the architect of this deception. Every smile, every kind word, every moment of support she'd shown Julian or me, a lie. My stomach turned. Detective Morrison nodded grimly. We need to locate Marcus immediately and confirm the story, she said to her partner. Everything else hinges on that. Cordelia's voice was barely audible. I thought he was dead. But I killed him. That's why I stayed hidden. I couldn't leave, not after what had happened. Rosalind, she told me it was safer. That I had to remain unseen. I couldn't breathe. But why Rosalind? Why would she do this? Cordelia shook her head. I don't know. Maybe jealousy. Maybe control. But she convinced me it was my fault, that the world would turn against me if anyone knew. When Marcus Brennan was found alive, everything clicked. The staged attack, the fake blood, the fabricated story that had kept Cordelia hidden for a decade, it all unraveled in a single afternoon. I watched as Marcus, confronted with the evidence, crumbled in tears, confessing the arrangement Rosalind had orchestrated. The $10,000 payment, the staged attack, the careful instructions to hide Cordelia and take credit for her art. I wanted to scream. I wanted to collapse. The betrayal was staggering. The woman I had loved, trusted, and lived with, had stolen 10 years from my sister. Detective Morrison moved with precision. Officers positioned themselves around the house, ready to intercept Rosalind the moment she returned. Every detail had been accounted for. It was time for justice. Cordelia and I sat in the living room, wrapped in blankets, her fingers clutching mine. The quiet before the storm was almost unbearable. I kept thinking about the years of hidden cries, the attic light Mrs. Patterson had mentioned, and the subtle hints I had dismissed. All of it pointed to this moment. When Rosalind's car finally pulled into the driveway, it was as if the world stopped. Her composed exterior cracked instantly when she saw the police vehicles. She tried to reverse, tried to escape, but the officers were ready. Mrs. Blake, Detective Morrison said firmly, you are under arrest for kidnapping, false imprisonment, and conspiracy. Rosalind's face went through a spectrum of emotion. Shock, denial, terror. She screamed, pointing at Cordelia, trying to turn the narrative around. She's mentally ill. Dangerous. I felt fury boil inside me, but I stayed still, holding Cordelia's hand. This was the moment the lies unraveled. Every calculated move, every stolen piece of art, every year of manipulation was ending here. Rosalind slumped to her knees, sobbing, defeated. Detective Morrison played Marcus' recorded confession, and finally the truth could not be denied. The woman who had posed as my life partner, who had smiled beside me for years, was a stranger. A manipulator. A criminal. Cordelia and I stayed close, holding each other as the officers led Rosalind away. For the first time in 10 years, Cordelia was free. Alive. Safe. I couldn't stop staring at her, trying to imprint this moment forever. The sister I had thought lost, the art that had been stolen and hidden, the betrayal that had haunted us all. It was finally over. And for the first time I felt a flicker of hope. That even in the darkest, most impossible circumstances, truth and love could prevail. The sound of Rosalind's car pulling into the driveway echoed through the quiet street like a ticking clock. My stomach twisted, my heart hammering as I watched her get out, completely unaware that the web of lies she had spent 10 years weaving was about to collapse around her. Her eyes locked on the police cars. For a moment she froze, the engine of her composed facade sputtering and dying. Panic replaced her usual calm. She tried to reverse, but 2 officers were already in position, blocking her path. "Mrs. Blake," Detective Morrison called firmly, "step out of the car. You are under arrest." Rosalind's face went pale, her confident mask shattering. What's happening? Julian. Cordelia. Something's wrong." Her voice rose in desperation. She pointed at Cordelia, her fingers shaking violently. "She's dangerous. She's crazy." I felt a surge of anger but also a strange clarity. This was the woman who had shared my life for years, the one I had trusted above all others. And now the truth was out. She wasn't just manipulative, she had destroyed years of my sister's life. I squeezed Cordelia's hand. Detective Morrison moved closer. "Mrs. Blake, you are being charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and conspiracy. You will have the opportunity to explain yourself in court." Rosalind collapsed to her knees, sobbing, her voice cracking. I saved her. I gave her purpose. I made her famous. You don't understand." Cordelia's gaze was steady, though her hands trembled. "You trapped me for 10 years, she said softly but firmly. "You lied, manipulated, and stole my life. My art. My freedom. You had no right." Rosalind's face contorted in disbelief, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But I protected her. Kept her safe. I didn't want her to hurt anyone. I was helping." I shook my head. "Helping? You imprisoned her. You controlled her. You stole her work. You decided her life without asking. That isn't helping. That's cruelty." Detective Morrison handed Rosalind the cuffs. "Your explanations will be heard in court. For now, this is justice." As officers guided Rosalind away, I felt a mix of relief, anger, and exhaustion. The woman I had loved, lived with, and trusted was gone. And in her place was the truth. Cordelia slumped into the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale but serene. I sat beside her, holding her hands. "It's over," I whispered. "You're free." Her lips quivered. "I can't believe it. 10 years. 10 years trapped above my own house. And she was here all this time." I nodded. "I know. I'm so sorry. We didn't know. But you're safe now. No one can touch you again." She leaned against me, fragile but alive, tears flowing freely. "I don't know how to even begin living again," she murmured. 10 years, gone. "You start one step at a time," I said gently. "We'll take it slow. But you're alive. That's the beginning." The paramedics checked her over and I watched as they carefully helped her down from the attic. Every movement was deliberate, careful, respectful. She was a shadow of the vibrant woman she once was, but she was here. Finally here. Later, sitting in our kitchen with a cup of tea, Cordelia showed me her portfolio. "Every piece I created while I was up there. Rosalind used them," she said softly. "But now I can reclaim my work. My life. My story." I nodded. "And you will. People need to know what happened to you. Your art, your courage, it's powerful." Her eyes glistened. "I never thought I'd get this chance. To be seen. To be heard. To matter again. I smiled, feeling a lightness I hadn't known in years. You do matter. You always did. That night the house felt different. The shadows weren't as heavy, the creaks less menacing. Cordelia slept in the bedroom that had once been hers, and I stayed nearby, listening for her breathing, watching the subtle rise and fall of her chest. For the first time in a decade she was home. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, bathing the house in warmth. Cordelia and I sat together at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. I want to tell my story, she said, determination in her voice. Through art. Through everything I've been through. People need to see it. They need to know survival is possible. I nodded, proud and awed. You'll reach so many people. And you'll help them heal. You already are. Cordelia smiled faintly. It won't be easy. The first few weeks. I was terrified of being enclosed, of being controlled. But now, I feel hope. Real hope. And I'll take it one day at a time. I squeezed her hand. And I'll be here every step of the way. For the first time in years the house felt alive. Safe. Free. And I realized something profound. Evil can hide behind the most familiar faces. But truth always finds a way to surface. And sometimes it comes with light, love, and the courage to reclaim what's rightfully yours. Cordelia looked at me, a spark of her old strength returning. I survived. And now I'm ready to live. I smiled. Yes. You are ready. And nothing can stop you now. The days after Rosalind's arrest were surreal. Cordelia and I moved slowly, cautiously, relearning how to live in a house that had been a prison for so long. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind, was a reminder of the years stolen from her. But now she was free, and that freedom, fragile as it felt, was hers to reclaim. Cordelia's recovery wasn't instant. The first few nights were the hardest. She woke in cold sweats, panic in her eyes, afraid of enclosed spaces, afraid of shadows. But we faced it together. I sat by her side, holding her hand, breathing with her, reminding her that she was safe now. Therapy sessions helped her navigate the trauma. Slowly she regained strength, not just physically but emotionally. Her laughter, once lost, returned in soft, tentative bursts. The sparkle in her eyes grew brighter each day. Watching her rediscover herself, I felt both awe and relief. 10 years of fear couldn't take away the courage she had nurtured in secret. Then came the breakthrough. Cordelia decided to tell her story through her art. She called it The Girl in the Attic. Each illustration was raw, honest, haunting. Page after page chronicled her decade of captivity. The cramped attic, the stolen artwork, the nights spent in darkness, and the gradual reclaiming of her spirit. Her self-portraits showed the physical toll, her illustrations captured the emotional journey, and her work radiated a strength she had carried silently for years. I watched her sign the first copies of her memoir at a local bookstore. The line of supporters stretched around the block. Survivors of abuse, people who had suffered in silence, mothers, daughters, young women, all waiting to meet her to hear her story. Some cried openly, some clutched her hands in gratitude. And Cordelia, once hidden and silenced, stood tall, speaking with clarity and purpose. "You gave me hope," one woman whispered. "Your story showed me that I can survive too." Cordelia's eyes glistened as she nodded. "You can. You're stronger than you think. And surviving is just the first step. Living fully, that's the goal." I realized then that her story had become more than personal healing. It was a beacon for others. Her artwork, once stolen and hidden, now empowered people to confront their own pain, to reclaim their own voices. Every sketch, every line, every brushstroke carried a piece of her courage. Months later, her life began to settle into a new normal. She gained weight back, her hair was cut and styled professionally, and her confidence returned. Speaking engagements, art therapy workshops, and public appearances slowly became her rhythm. And in every moment I was there. Her sister, her ally, her unwavering support. One evening, walking through downtown Asheville under the stars, she linked her arm through mine. "You know what the best part is?" she asked, smiling faintly. "What?" I replied. "For the first time in 10 years I'm not just surviving. I'm living." Every line I drew, every sketch I made while I was up there, it wasn't just survival. It was proof that I could endure. And now it's proof that I can thrive. I squeezed her hand. "And you will. every day. Looking back on the nightmare, I realized something profound. Evil can hide behind the most familiar, loving facades. 10 years, I shared a home with someone who had orchestrated unimaginable suffering for my sister. And yet, despite the darkness, love, truth, and courage emerged victorious. Cordelia's story became a movement. Letters flooded in daily, people sharing their own stories, thanking her for inspiring hope. Survivors of abuse saw themselves in her art and words. Her workshops grew, reaching countless women and men who had once felt powerless. And she finally stood in the light she had fought so hard to reach. One night she sat across from me with a quiet smile, stirring honey into her tea. "You saved me," she said softly, eyes bright. "You found me when it mattered most." "I didn't save you," I whispered. "You saved yourself. I just helped you take the first step." She nodded, understanding the truth in that. 10 years made me stronger. Every day I survived, every piece of art I created, it was my resilience, my proof. And now I can finally live without fear. Her story reminds me, and anyone who hears it, that truth always finds a way to surface, no matter how deeply it's buried. That courage, even in the darkest hours, can lead to freedom. That survival is powerful, but reclaiming life is extraordinary. And to you watching this, if something feels wrong, if your gut screams at you, trust it. Don't ignore the warning signs. Stand up for yourself. Speak the truth. And if you've been trapped, silenced, or hurt, know this. Hope exists, resilience is possible, and your voice matters. Cordelia's story teaches that darkness can't last forever. The light always finds a way. If this story moved you, if it inspired you, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs hope, share this story. Every voice deserves to be heard, and every survivor deserves to reclaim their life.